Well, for you guys listening, before we dive into one of our deep dive discussions on the latest Critical Role episode, we'd like to do a little recap. You know, these can be long episodes. We'd like to update you guys on what happened. And then what we do is we cut that out and we post it as a separate video on the channel. So if you're watching just that recap video, hello, and click the link in the description to be able to see the whole episode discussion. And also, we want to know what you guys think. So feel free to jump into that discussion and give us your thoughts. And also just a quick plug for the Discord. We do have our watch parties in the Discord. Everybody's welcome. Come chat with us. We'll be active in there leading up to Thursday's episode. You were going to say something?
And I was just going to say, we had a few people come through that explicitly cited your welcome message. So yeah, come hang out, y'all. We always love it when new people come around. So
yeah, you're always welcome. So except for you, Joe, you're not welcome.
Freaking Joe.
Yeah. All right. So episode number 69, a cursed episode, or maybe a blessed one. Episode 69 called Nice. And this episode opens up with the party has a pretty good idea of what they want to do, where they want to go. I either at the start of this episode or towards the end, they're going to determine to eventually go to one of our 2D lettered characters. But before they can do that, they have to wait a day to get their charges back on their teleportation staff that they took from Ludinus's tower. So they're talking, they're thinking, okay, what should we actually do today? What are our options? And there's a couple, the party's going to decide to eventually split up here. Part of the party, Chetney, Laudna, and Imogen, Chetney notices some people who are hang gliding over Zephra, and they're like, let's go do that. So they're going to head off that direction to have a little bit of fun for the day. Meanwhile, Aurum really would like to visit his family, and more importantly, to see the graves of his father-in-law, Derrig, and his husband, Will. Also during this time, Ashton is sort of, as like they're splitting up, Ashton actually takes a moment where he sort of steps aside and, as Taliesin describes it, has a bit of a panic attack, just like thinking about really everything that Keyleth just shared with him, that he's a titan of blood. And it's in having sort of this moment of a panic attack and kind of recomposing himself that they notice the rocks on the ground seem to vibrate and almost like a heartbeat kind of resonate with his breaths, almost like some kind of communication that's happening there. Despite all of this, they sort of recompose themselves and they head off to catch up with the party. They do actually sneak over to Fanny Z's place, the clothing store, and Ashton gets his new outfit, which I don't remember the exact details on it. I think there was definitely like a couple of showings of the Hishari symbol. I think there was like some brass and some black, but bottom line, Fanny Z asks Ashton, how do you feel? And Ashton says, I feel seen, which was just a very cool line from Taliesin. We cut over to Aurum, who goes over to see Nell. And also during this time as well, it's either Fern or FCG who talks about how stressed they are. I think it's Fern, and FCG's like, you wanna smoke? And they begin to smoke. FCG, I think at one point says he's smoking through his ear or something. I don't know, but so they're smoking. Aurum's also like trying to converse with Nell, like despite the smoke around them. They do ask questions like, hey, what do you think of the gods? Like, Nell, are you religious? And Nell's like, no, not quite, not exactly. They talk. Nell also asks about Aurum and is like, yeah, give me the details. Aurum's too humble to brag about himself. Like, how's he been doing? And FGG jokes about Aurum being really great, but that he can fall off things. He can kind of lose his balance. And they joke about the skyship that he fell off of in a previous episode. all this to say, they eventually decide to go to Will and Derek's graves. Nell leads them out into this valley that is beset between the mountains around Zephra, and they eventually find this pasture with hundreds of like cairn stones that have been stacked in like these memorials and sort of like makeshift tombstones even that have been set across this valley. I honestly can't do justice to Liam's basically monologue as he's talking to Will and Derek. It is very somber. He basically apologizes that he didn't visit the last time he was here and talks about specifically to Will how much he loves him and how much he misses him and how what they're doing is for the greater good. It's so much bigger than just the two of them. And basically has this line that says, where he says, you know, I don't know when I'll be back or if I'll be back. And it's just this incredibly beautiful moment from Liam. And I think Fern even like pipes in like and says something like, you know, because he says like, I'll see you soon. And Fern's like, but not too soon, right? To which Orem's like, you know, it's all pretty brief in the grand scheme of things. Separate from that, we cut back over to team hang gliding. Chetney, Laudna, and Imogen, they go to this hang gliding thing, and it kind of has like the feel of like when you're like on a tourist destination and you go like bungee jumping, or you see the people who are doing like the it is like bungee jumping, like the little, it's bungee jumping. I can't think of what I'm trying to describe it as something else. But, you know, there's a couple of instructors. I think one of them quotes them 5 gold and the other instructor's like, oh, well, you know, here's our other package. It's 20 gold and, you know, you get to ride around, you get to keep your goggles. It's gonna be really great. They end up basically eventually doing this. And, whereas with Orem, we had this very somber, serious interaction. This is High-octane episode 69 shenanigans.
Chaos demons.
Yes. They are flying all over the place. Matt is asking for strength checks. In fact, at one point, Chetney and Laudna are like kind of dogfighting and like flying around each other, and Laudna's doing like sparks in the sky to create like this like fun effect. And even people down below are like even watching this, like seeing this happen. And at some point, one of the flight instructors like, okay, we're done with this. This is getting way out of hand. To which, you know, begins to like steer Laudna's hang glider back. Laudna takes back over. And like I said, it's just pure shenanigans. They eventually do make it back in one piece, no crashing, even though it was close on Chetney's side of things. I would say just watch our video on this whole interaction because it's pretty great. But then once the flying's done, the party reconvenes and they're like, where should we go now? And Orem mentions a bar called the Airy Irie that's really popular. That would be a great place just to unwind and relax. They go to this bar, they begin to drink, and they have a conversation that honestly is like most of their conversations lately. They start talking about the gods and what they think about them. And they even talk about FCG. Like, could FCG be like a latent like god of some kind? Like his connection's pretty interesting. And also with this, Orem finally asked Chetney about his toy career. And he's like, are you famous, dude? Like, did you? I had no idea. But there is one conversation that's pretty interesting. Laudna actually kind of steals away for a moment and speaks to essentially Delilah deep within her and says, are you still there? Like, is that you? Are you still around? She gets no response, but later as they're wrapping up for the night, and Laudna kisses Imogen and says goodnight to Imogen, as she's walking away, she hears a voice in her mind that says, no matter who you pray to, no matter who you reach for, you are and will always be mine. And then we go to break. So you want to take it from there, my friend?
Yes, sir. Well done. So we pick up in the second half with the crew kind of still celebrating, drinking, and Chetney actually uses his new sword to light one of Fern's cigarettes. And as he does this, the sword speaks to him telepathically, and it warns him that the ruler of this city is trying to deceive him, along with the rest of the council. Do not trust the voice of the Tempest. The party then kind of wraps things up and heads to Orum's mom's house to crash for the night. But before bed, Fern does decide to scry on Dancer. And so she scries and she gets this vision of a street past sunset and can actually see Dancer kind of stumbling and catching herself on a nearby wall. She's drunk. And she has a metallic creature on her shoulder and also one following behind her. She keeps walking, I think throws up, and Fern basically recognizes the city around her as Eos. And that's when the vision ends. So she tells the party, and they decide we should probably head there tomorrow after we talk to Keyleth. Orum also tries the Sending Stone with Caleb, but it doesn't work. And Laudna checks the Treshy Scribe Orb, which is dark, and then everyone goes to sleep. We have our long rest. It's the next morning, and the party gets up and heads to go see Keyleth. Kind of on their way, Chetney tells everybody, like, hey, I don't trust this girl. And the sword once again warns him, like, hey, be on guard. So they arrive to Keyleth. They tell her their plans and kind of just get back up to speed with one another. And she says, you know what, you guys have proven yourselves very capable, and you know you have the ability to teleport because of the staff. Whenever you're ready and you feel comfortable, perhaps you could go to Ruidus and kind of see what's up and maybe come back and, you know, let me know. And they're like, yeah, I think we're ultimately headed that direction. You know, but for now we need to go to Eos. And Keyleth's like, you know what, I need to leave and go talk to some of my contacts. So what if I go to Eos with you, and then from there I can teleport you guys to the Shattered Teeth, because the party also wants to go there, but they can't teleport themselves there because they've never been there. So that's the plan. And Keyleth's like, okay, just give me a minute to go tell the guards what's going on, and also kind of get into my less conspicuous getup. And so Keyleth actually transforms into just like a normal looking, I believe, human, which we later come to find out will be Timothée Chalamet, but just kind of an unassuming disguise. Right. So the voice of the Tempest isn't, you know, accosted while she's traveling. Yeah. While this kind of whole conversation, whole encounter is going on, Chet has been like very suspicious, and the sword is like talking to him and telling him like, don't trust her, she's lying. But ultimately they all gather, and Imogen actually has given the staff to FCG. So the FCG will be the one to teleport them to Eos, because he's more familiar, I guess, was the idea. So FCG is the one teleporting. Matt has Sam roll a D100 for teleportation during the solstice, and he actually rolls a 1. So everyone gets stuck in the liminal space between teleports, and they all take 22 force damage. Sam rolls again. This time it's a 51, so they do ultimately poof and find themselves on the streets of Eos. It's early morning here, and the streets are very quiet. So the party then follows Fern, because she remembers from her scry which direction the city was in, until they get to what they believe to be the correct district, and then FCG casts Locate Creature on Dancer, and they begin leading the rest of the way. While they're traveling, the sword once again is talking to Chet, being like, all right, you know, wait for your chance, maybe kind of lag behind, get her by herself, and then make your move. He ultimately doesn't do anything. And we arrive to this building, and FCG's like, she's in this building on the 2nd floor. So they try to formulate a plan of what to ultimately do here. And this includes Keyleth wild shaping into a small mouse. But they ultimately decide to send Imogen up alone at first, since Dancer doesn't know who Imogen is. However, she goes upstairs, and it's just a long hallway with a bunch of closed doors. So FCG comes to join her and able to pinpoint which door due to the Locate Creature. So Imogen then knocks, and after a bit of flirty persuasion, actually gets Dancer to come open the door. It's at this point that FCG reveals that they are also there, and Dancer freaks out. But they quickly cast Calm Emotions on her and have a conversation. One of the first things that happens is FCG asks who this metallic creature is that they don't recognize. And Dancer says it's Pussy the Second. And Pate and Pussy actually get into a little bit of an altercation. But FCG says they're here because we need help, and we also want to help you. You've noticed all this craziness going on with the moon, right? Like, we're trying to fix all of that and save the world, essentially.
Right.
And FCG's like, I even have friends that could maybe heal your arm, help you regrow it. And Dancer says, I don't need to be fixed. You know, I've learned a lot from putting this arm together, and it's a reminder of, you know, be careful of who you trust. And FCG's like, well, I really can't like move on until I close this chapter with you. So like, I'm not asking for your forgiveness, but I just am asking for a chance to do good for somebody else. And Dancer says that, you know, if you came for help, like I'll do what I can, but there's nothing I can do to make you feel better about like what you're hanging on to. And FCG says, okay, well, we'll treat this like a job. We'll pay you for your help, and then we never have to talk again. And Dancer says, deal. So they then tell her about this harness that they came to get her advice on. And FCG actually casts Lesser Restoration on Dancer because she was still super hungover. And so once that happens, she's like, okay, well, let me go downstairs, meet the rest of your party, and take a look at this thing. So they do just that. And after looking at it, she knows quickly that she needs some help with this. And she says, specifically, I need to get Imahara Joe's advice. He's more classically trained, and together we can probably figure this thing out. So they need to get back to Bassaris. Boom, that's the plan. They're like, okay, Keyleth, can you take us there? We need a tree. So they're on the move to find a tree in Eos, and as they're traveling, none other than Shithead arrives once again. This bird with a vengeance against FCG, who we last saw here in Eos. He swoops in, takes a deuce on FCG, and
Classic.
Yeah, and basically combat begins. But Fern basically one-shots this thing with a scorching ray. But as you recall, like last time, it revives. And so it begins to revive. FCG grabs it and tries to like shove it in his chassis. And
I think they talk
as
about
it's
him
reviving
eating it or something at some
Yeah.
point. Like, can you just
they don't
eat
know
it,
what to
or-
do with this
Yeah.
thing. And Imogen actually kills it again with Shocking Grasp. And while it's reviving this next time, Fern casts Speak with Animals and speaks to it. It's like, what are you doing? Like, what's your goal? And it says it just like hates FCG. It seems unworthy and it pisses them off. And FCG's like, who is your master? Like, why do you do this? And the bird can't remember because it's been such a long time. But yeah, its master is dead and it can't die. So I hate FCG. I live to mess with FCG. The bird actually then gets free, but FCG casts Turn Undead on it, which Laudna also has to make the saving throw for. She does. The bird does not. And so it just disintegrates and will not be reviving. So FCG's glad to kind of get that dealt with. Meanwhile, Keyleth and Dancer are like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And Keyleth thinks they're all very strange but fun. And she says that she used to have friends like this and that she's really missed this. They then are approaching the college because that is where some trees are. And they actually get accosted by a guard as they try to like get into the college area. And Fern's like, I'm Professor Calloway. Don't you know who I am? And they're ultimately like, hey, we just need to like look at that tree over there. Can you just like let us go look at the tree? And the guard's like, okay, fine, but that better be all you do. And Ashton actually makes like an intimidation check and is like, I'm gonna remember you because like for like trying to mess with us. And I think the guard's name was Stanley.
Yeah.
But anyway, they go to the tree. Keyleth casts the plant striding spell, which I can't remember what it's called for some reason. And they head to Bassaris, and that is where the episode ends. Once again, episode 69 of Campaign 3. Nice. And a link to our full discussion, as a reminder, will be in the description below. So come check that out.